What is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here as we deep dive into WrestleMania history. Matches that, probably aren't looked at as big WrestleMania matches that have sort of got lost in the history of time that really mean a whole lot when it comes to the history of WrestleMania and bringing WrestleMania to be what it is today. This one, I was just sort of keep diving into those middle manias that kind of get lost in the shuffle in there, and I was thinking about WrestleMania 20, looked at as possibly one of the worst, or maybe not the worst matches of all time, but a match that just didn't deliver. And I wasn't watching wrestling at this time. I know that I was sort of like still reading the WWE magazine as well as the SmackDown magazine, like when I was waiting to clock out at work or waiting to clock in from lunch. The time clock was sort of located next to the magazine stand, and I would grab it. To me, this was like really weird, the time in wrestling. I still remember opening up a SmackDown magazine and seeing that like Eddie Guerrero was going to be main eventing a pay-per-view against Brock Lesnar for the World Heavyweight Championship at the time, and I just couldn't believe it. I was shocked that Eddie Guerrero would somehow become like a main guy. I remember, I can't remember which pay-per-view it was, but the one where John Cena had a match against Brock Lesnar. And just like thinking that John Cena was just this guy that just came from nowhere. I kind of looked at him a lot like, Rocky, where they just took a rookie out of nowhere and they were just trying to manufacture a star. I wasn't watching SmackDown at the time, so I didn't know about his rapper gimmick catching on after the Halloween edition of SmackDown with him dressing up like Vanilla Ice and just kind of just being like, wow, like what are they doing right now? But I'm sure that if you were watching Raw at the time, Goldberg going up against Brock Lesnar, that was like when they were kind of putting I call them dream matches on every WrestleMania, where they were just ignoring the brands of Raw and SmackDown, and they were putting on somebody in a match against each other. We saw it with like Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels. We saw it with this Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg match. Let's just tear down the walls. I wish that they would have sort of emphasized something like bragging grounds or something like that. And they always had pretty good storylines to build up those feuds that you just kind of like just understood. I think even like Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels for 25 was still one of those dream matches. But I mean, like, they could have sort of, made the storyline real easy just with the Raw and SmackDown general manager at the time sort of putting two people up against each other and then having something on the line. Maybe the main event of the next pay-per-view, or it could have been, it's something that put them together. But to me, honestly, like, everything that was going on at the time, Goldberg coming to WWE, for a wrestling fan at that time, they were finally bringing in the big names from WCW. It took a long time for some guys, their contracts with WCW to end. Some guys, when WWE bought WCW, their contracts were absorbed and just kind of like picked up. And those are like your sort of like those lower level guys that were part of the Invasion. Chuck Palumbo, Sean Stasiak. There was all those guys. The guys you saw sitting in the box, Lance Storm at WrestleMania 17. And, they sort of just got sucked up and put in there. But the guys with the big contracts that were guaranteed, that even though WCW sold the company, Turner was still paying those contracts until the last days, even though they weren't working. It would have been stupid for them. You had guys like Booker T, you had guys like Diamond Dallas Page, Both of them kind of had different reasons. Diamond Dallas Page, honestly, because of his age, and he knew that if he took time off and sat out, he didn't know where he would be. And kind of like, you don't want the wrestling world to forget you. Booker T wanted to come in because at the time he was the champion, and wanted to come in at the highest place that he could on the WWE's pecking order. If you come in and you're the WCW champion, even if they're acting like WCW was a second-rate promotion, you're still like the top guy of that second-rate promotion. Worst you're gonna do is find yourself in the mid-card, but he's still found his way in the main events, interrupting that triple threat between Benoit, Austin, and Chris Jericho. Coming in and having the feud with The Rock at SummerSlam. He found his way in there, but Goldberg, he came in, ended up debuting the night after WrestleMania 19, and he came in a big way. Going up face to face with The Rock. They would have a match, I believe, at No Way Out, and the big part of Goldberg coming to WWE was that The Rock had talked him into doing a set of matches. I think the plan at the time was for them to have 3 matches against each other, where they would sort of trade wins and then have the big one to settle the score. And Rock was getting a lot of opportunities at the time, and he went off to make a movie, and we wouldn't see him again. I don't think we would see him ever again for a long time after that, because around the time of WrestleMania 21, his contract expires, and WWE decides that they're not going to pick it up, and they decide that if he's going to go off and make movies, it's he's not really going to go anywhere. So when he wants to come back to wrestling, he can come back, and The Rock ends up thinking that that's some sort of a knock on him, and they don't come together until WrestleMania 27 in Atlanta for him to be the guest host, which led to WrestleMania 28 with him versus Cena. Goldberg, he finally comes in, he signs his 1-year deal. He's going up against The Rock in his first match, and to make the most of Goldberg, he's put into a series of matches, mostly with Triple H on the Monday Night Raw brand, and Goldberg and Triple H just didn't play well. Goldberg wasn't used to doing the job. He did come in. He was World Heavyweight Champion. He wrestled the Elimination Chamber at SummerSlam. He was treated like a big name in the company. But 1 year in, he decides, what? He doesn't want to re-up. He just wants to go home. He just doesn't want this part of his career anymore. He's made enough money. He can find something else to do that's worth his time. He doesn't want to do the travel. Doesn't want to do the politics. He's out. He's done. Brock Lesnar on the other side. This is a guy that WWE found. They trained him, took him out of college. This guy was pretty much handed the WWE Championship right out of the gate, treated like he was the biggest name that there was in WWE at the time, with no Rock, with no Stone Cold, and just treated like they had found the next incarnation of Hulk Hogan. He had been babyface, he'd been heel, he'd done this and that, but we come up to WrestleMania and he's telling them he's quitting, he's going home. I don't really think anybody has. It might have happened in the 80s, when guys just went on a bender and just decided that they didn't want to do it anymore. They felt like Vince was screwing them. But in this era of big money contracts, you don't really just see anybody walk into the office and say, that's it, I'm done. This news is just really hard to keep under wraps. That both of these guys are leaving, and they just happen to be in matches against each other. The New York crowd there at the Garden honestly just turns on both of them right out of the gate. It's a lot like that ECW show where they did Batista versus Big Show, and they wanted no part of that being the main event of their ECW show that they bought tickets for, and they just turn on both of those guys. And And, you know, Stone Cold Steve Austin is a special guest referee in this match. And he's talked about, what happened in the ring that night. And he just says that's one of the biggest regrets he has in the wrestling industry is he didn't do anything to really help that match. He just sort of let it fall apart. If he just would have, bounced off the ropes, done something to get them into it, thinking that Austin was going to get physical with both of these guys, maybe he could have done it. The match ends up coming down to Goldberg getting the win over Brock Lesnar. Some people say it's because of the fact that they were upset that Brock was leaving them, hanging him out high and dry, and I guess thinking that if he lost at WrestleMania, it would hurt him in the long run. His paycheck still came in the same, so the WrestleMania bonus was the same as it was. It just didn't really matter, but to them, that's the one-up that they had on him. Stone Cold Steve Austin, he hit some stunners after it's done. The crowd gets into it, like you said. If he would have done something, that would have helped out. But to me, honestly, this match is big enough that it should have delivered. But I think the crowd just felt like these guys were leaving the WWE. Maybe they felt like somebody else could have deserved their spot on the card and would have delivered a better match. But they gave him no chance. And I think the fans are the ones that ruined this one. I'm sure the guys, even though it was both of their last nights in the company, would have gone out and gave them something. But once that crowd turned, that was all she wrote. It was over and done. And that's all you get. And so, in my mind, that's one of the biggest misses there is in WrestleMania history, is the Brock versus Goldberg match, Stone Cold Steve Austin out there, special guest referee. Those three big names, and they deliver a dud. Doesn't make sense.